In this lesson, we are going to take a look at how to create a new sheet metal forming tool. Now you may be wondering, why would you do that when you have an entire design library full of forming tools? Well, let's go into the design library and take a look at them. Now, after examining all of the various type of forming tools, if you cannot locate anything close to what you need, which means if you could modify it like we did in an earlier lesson. But if you can't locate anything close to what you need, you will be required to create a new forming tool. And in all reality, it's actually pretty simple. So let's begin. You want to start by creating a new part file, which I already did. And then you want to create an extruded base on which to create or design this forming tool on. So I am going to select extruded boss base and then the top plane. Now the shape and size of this base is not important, so I will select center point rectangle, stretch it out, no smart dimensions are needed, close out of the sketch. A thickness of 10 is fine. Again, the thickness is not critical. We are just looking for a base. Close out of the boss extrude command. Now I am ready to begin designing my forming tool. I am once again going to select extruded boss base and begin my sketch on the front plane. I will view normal to the front plane and then start sketching. We'll put a large radius, extend it down, and then back to the starting point. Next, we'll add some smart dimensions so we can get this fully defined. We'll set this to a height of 10, this horizontal leg to 5, the radius to 10, and this leg here, 10. And you see the sketch is fully defined, so we can close out of the sketch. We are then returned to the property manager for the extrude command, and I want to extrude this about the midplane for a distance of 15 millimeters. I will close out of the boss extrude command, and I am almost finished. But first, I must add a fillet to this edge here, because if you were to lance this into a sheet metal part, the sheet metal part will not like this sharp edge. So I will select the fillet command, select this edge, and then input a radius. Now it's important to note for this radius that the radius must be no smaller than the thickness of the part in which you will be using this forming tool in. So my sheet metal part that I will be placing this in is 18 gauge or 1.5 millimeters. So this radius must be at least 1.5 millimeters. I am going to type 4. Close out of the fillet command, and there's my fillet. Now the last step is to remove this base. While it's not necessary to remove the base, it does help you in visualizing your forming tool. The easiest way to remove this base is to go into the extrude cut feature, select this top face as your sketch plane, convert entities of this top face, and then close out of the sketch. And for direction, you want to select through all. Click the green check mark, and the base is gone. There's our new forming tool. Now, just like we did in an earlier lesson, we have to define the forming tool. In order to define the forming tool, in an earlier lesson, we selected Insert, Sheet Metal, Forming Tool, or you can go to the Sheet Metal tab and go into the ribbon and select Forming Tool. I am going to select the bottom face of this part here as my stopping face, and then select the 3 vertical planar faces as my faces to remove. I am going to close out of the forming tool, and notice all of my colors in the screen are correct. Cyan is the stopping face, red are the faces to be removed, and yellow are the faces that we are keeping. Now the last step is to save this as a forming tool. The easiest way to save a new forming tool is to open up the design library and go into the appropriate folder and simply drag it from the feature manager tree. And notice my task pane closed. So what I should have done when I open the design library is to pin it open. So let's go back and redo this. I will drag part 1 over to this window, and I am prompted for a new forming tool name. We will call this Radio Lance. Select Save, and it's added to the window. Now, let's see if this works. Let's go into a part we used in an earlier lesson called Edge Flange, which can be found in your Working Files folder, and add this Radio Lance. I'll place it on this face. Let's go ahead and rotate it. There we go. We can position it. I'll add a couple smart dimensions. We'll set this to 40. And from this edge, we will set this to 35. Close out a dimension, close out of the Forming Tool Property Manager, and the lance is placed in the sheet metal part. Now I'm going to go back to an isometric view, close out of the design library, and let's roll the part so you can see what we produced. And there is our new lance in the sheet metal part. And this concludes our lesson on creating new sheet metal forming tools.